They're rocking around the Christmas tree at the Christmas party hop. A mistletoe hung where you can see every couple tries to stop. Rocking around the Christmas tree, let the Christmas spirit ring. Later we'll have some pumpkin pie and we'll do some caroling. You will get a sentimental feeling when you hear that, the halls with bars of holly rocking around the Christmas tree. Have a happy holiday. Everyone dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way. Oh, you will get that sentimental feeling when you hear voices singing, let's be jolly. Deck the halls with bars of party rocking around the Christmas tree. Have a happy holiday. Everyone dancing merrily in the new old-fashioned way.
And just take a deep breath. Just feel the peace and the joy of this moment. Just know that we are here together celebrating a holiday, as Karen so beautifully sung. And let this holiday show us the love of God, the God consciousness, the love of family and friends, the love of the season. In this time, we are grateful for all of that and so much more as we come together as a community, either online or in person, or at a kitchen table, or on a mountaintop, wherever it is, people gather. God is there. That God consciousness is that part of us that is part of God. We are in unity with that oneness. And we are in unity with one another. So remembering that, especially this time of year, is so very important and so very special. So today we are thankful for this time together, for Brenna, for Karen, for music with Ken and his beautiful fingers on that piano. We are thankful for our practitioners who hold consciousness, who pray with us, who hold up our minister, Reverend Jenn, who we are very thankful for as well, for our hospitality, for everyone who is part of this community and who is part of this service. We are grateful for each and every one, and we honor each and every one. So at this time of holiday, this time of Christ consciousness, let us come together in the true Spirit of God with love and joy in our hearts, and let it spill out to everyone around us. So we are so grateful and thankful for this time together, for these holidays, for one another as we say together, and so it is. Beautiful Christmas Day. And we have some words of inspiration on this lovely day. The first is from Messiah.org, and Christ's consciousness is a universal consciousness of pure spirit. It exists within each person through the soul. And from Lao Tzu, the key to growth is the production of higher dimensions of higher consciousness into our awareness. And from our founder, the Honorary Dr. Ernest Holmes, gratitude is one of the chief graces of human existence and is crowned in heaven with a consciousness of unity.
This year, our holiday story centers around a young, sensitive little boy, a very loving young man. It doesn't really matter where he lives. It doesn't really matter what he does or what his parents do. He was part of a small community, and this story is a little bit about his story. You see, Claude turned 10 years old, and something happened within his heart when he had that birthday. And when he got up that morning, something just felt different with him. And he was always sensitive and he was always caring, but something seemed to be more significant. So he went about his daily tasks and he went about going to school and all this stuff, and he started to notice that things in his life and in his community weren't what he had thought they were. He began to see people seeming grumbly somehow, dissatisfied, frowning from time to time. He didn't know that there was a significant reason for this. He hadn't heard anything that could be going on, but it kind of sparked something within him, and he became curious, and he wanted to find out more about it. You see, he went to school, and he noticed the kids at school had started kind of hanging out in small groups. And the groups that they hung out in were kids that kind of were the same, or so he thought. And they didn't seem to talk to the kids that weren't the same. In fact, sometimes he noticed they made fun of the other kids. This didn't sit well with him. Then he began to notice people when he was out and about, walking to the store or in the store, and they just didn't seem happy. And he couldn't quite understand what that was all about. He saw a young woman with her little girl, and she just lost her patience one day in the grocery store, and she began to scold her daughter. And she sounded so harsh, and the little girl looked so heartbroken. And his heart kind of went out to them, and he kept thinking, something's up, something's going on, and I've got to find out what this is about. Then one day on his way home from school, he saw a group of people at the bus stop. And an older woman was sitting there, and as the bus pulled up and everybody got ready to get on the bus, as she stood up, she dropped her bag, and all of her things fell out of it. And the people that were with her at the bus stop just walked around her and got on the bus. Well, Claude ran over and helped her pick up her bag and grabbed her wallet and a couple other things, and he put them all together and he handed them to her. And then he gently took her arm and helped her get on the bus. She smiled, she waved. She was so thrilled by his attention. He just kept thinking, something's up. Something is up. As the days came and went, he saw more and more people demonstrating rude behaviors, honking horns because someone didn't get out of a parking place fast enough for the next person to park. It also seemed like some people just didn't seem to be interested in each other anymore. There were no smiles, no joyful greetings. Now he was getting really concerned. By early fall, he began to realize something needed to change, and he believed that he was the one that needed to bring forth the change. It couldn't be possible for all of these people in his beloved community to just be unhappy. Something had to be at the core of all of this. Well, he knew exactly who he wanted to talk to. There was a beautiful, amazing woman in his community, just a short walk from his house, and her name was Mrs. Smith. He liked to go to Mrs. Smith's house because it always smelled so good, and he couldn't quite figure out what that smell was. His mother told him that Mrs. Smith believed in burning incense. He wasn't sure what that was, but he liked it anyway. So he went over to her house and he knocked on the door, and as she opened the door, her eyes lit up, and she was just so thrilled to see him, and she said, "Claude, welcome, come into my home." And he sat down and he said, I have a concern, and I think you can help me. And she said, "Okay." And he began to tell her what he was seeing and what was going on. And he said, the holidays are coming. They're going to be here in any time at all, a time when everybody should be filled with joy. But something's missing, and I don't know what it is. Can you help me? Well, Mrs. Smith sat down, and she began to tell him how too often we forget how blessed we are. We forget how beautiful life is for us, and we get caught up in the things that aren't working. We get caught up in the challenges. She told him briefly about the story that he was somewhat familiar with about the baby child that was born and was brought into this world as a light shower, as one that could show us the light of our lives. And this child was born in a time that was very, very dark, very, very many years ago. Well, he knew this story, and he knew that she was talking about the baby Jesus. But she went on to say something more. She said, "You see, one of the things that Jesus brought to all of us was a Christ consciousness. That mannerism of this great teacher is alive in every single one of us, but we've forgotten. We've lost sight of that. Or some of us aren't even aware of it because we've never been told. And that Christ consciousness allows us to live in that place of love and light." And she said, in many of the teachings and many of the things that Jesus brought to this planet, he told everyone, these things that I do, you can do also. Claude got excited because here he's sitting here thinking, what can he do, a 10-year-old kid? And now he's being told that a Christ consciousness is in him, within him. And oh my goodness, what can he do with this? He felt powerful, if you can imagine, for a 10-year-old kid. Many of us know the story. We're very familiar with the story of the birth of Jesus. And we know that we are at that time of year right now when many will be celebrating, the date that we have designated as the birth of Jesus. But Claude knew there was so much more to this. And he also felt like there was probably something more he could find out about what was going on and what could he do. Before he left Mrs. Smith's house, she gave him a beautiful quote. And he wrote it down because he didn't want to forget it. It just seemed exactly what he was looking for. It was a quote from a man named Eric Butterworth. And it goes like this: Jesus discovered the divine dimension in himself, the Christ self. This was the key to Jesus' acceptance of his divinity, and he made it clear that this same divine dimension is the root of reality for each of us. He folded up the piece of paper and he put it in his pocket. He pulled it out from time to time. He kept reading it over and over again, and he kept thinking, What else? What else do I need to know to help all of these people in my community? As he walked home from Mrs. Smith's house, he passed Mr. Barrett's house. Mr. Barrett was a really, really nice man, but it often seemed that people weren't very nice to Mr. Barrett. One of the things Claude had noticed, because he didn't live far from Mr. Barrett's house, is that too many times the police were at his house. Claude asked his mother one time, well, why are the police always over there? And she says, well, maybe they just think that Mr. Barrett knows what's going on in the community whenever something bad happens. And Claude wasn't sure that that felt like the right answer, but he decided to go knock on Mr. Barrett's door. He told him he had just talked to Mrs. Smith, and he told him that he was concerned about what was going on in the community and had Mr. Barrett noticed. Mr. Barrett said, the holidays are coming, and a lot of people get a little disgruntled. Some people get sad, challenged by what's going on. He said, but let me tell you about a belief that I have and a holiday celebration that I participate in. It's called Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is celebrated from December 26th to January 1st, and it is an African American holiday. It honors family, community, and culture. Each day of Kwanzaa, the individuals who celebrate light a candle. Each day stands for a different principle. And the day that they light the candle, they take that day to focus on that particular principle. Claude wanted to know what these principles were. He wanted to understand all of this, and Mr. Barrett gently said, well, the first one is unity. Well, that sparked a chord with Claude. The second one is self-determination. The third, collective work and responsibility. The fourth, cooperative economics. The fifth is purpose. The sixth is creativity. The seventh is faith. Claude wrote those down on the back of the paper where he had the quote from Mrs. Smith. Mr. Barrett told him that people get together, they raise their hands in the air, they drum drums, they sing songs, they dance, they laugh, they celebrate. And Claude said, well, I'm not African American, so does that mean I can't celebrate this holiday? And Mr. Barrett said, oh, my dear, dear boy, of course you can. Anyone can. And he too offered him a quote. He had it written on a beautiful little card from Kelly Carter Jackson. And the quote said this: I don't think there will ever be a time where the principles of Kwanzaa will not be important or timely. It's a great time for reflection. And now more than ever, our country needs to be reminded of unity. Oh my gosh. He was so excited over this idea because what he was seeing in his community were people separating themselves from one another, kind of standing back and not being a part of connecting with one another. No engagement was taking place. And what was missing was unity. So that was the idea he grasped onto. And he took the beautiful card that Mr. Barrett gave him and he folded that up and put that in his pocket with the quote he had from Mrs. Smith. He kept thinking, how can we live in this beautiful community where I've lived my whole life and people seem so alone? People seem ostracized from one another. He probably didn't think the word ostracized because he was only 10 years old, but it's possible. So now he knew that he not only had the Christ consciousness within him, and so does everyone else, but we all could strive for unity and some of these other beautiful principles that he was learning about. Now he was on a mission. He wanted to learn as much as he could about the different faiths and the different celebrations that were going to take place during the holidays. He had thought that with this Christ consciousness within him, he might just have the ability to help bring his community together. He might just have the power, if you will, to talk to the people and help them learn about the season of love and light. The next day, he remembered Mr. Abrams. Mr. Abrams was an individual who lived 2 blocks from Claude's house, and he seemed to celebrate differently than everyone else did. So Claude wanted to know something about Mr. Abrams. He was welcomed into the home just like he had been before, and he was eagerly told about the celebration of Hanukkah. Now, he'd heard that word before, and Mr. Abrams said sometimes it's spoken differently, and there's different spellings for the word and a few other ways that we look at it, but don't even be concerned about that. All you need to know that it is a Jewish festival, and it is celebrated for 8 nights and days on a specific date, beginning on a specific date of the Hebrew calendar. Again, candles are involved. Candles are lit. There is ceremony. There is celebration. The lighting of the candles are usually take place on a candelabrum, and the 9 branches are often called the menorah. One branch is typically placed above or below the others, and its candle is used to light the 8 candles. This gave Claude something to think about. What Mr. Abrams said is, I have a beautiful quote for you to take with you. It's from a woman by the name of Anne Frank. That name was familiar. Claude was very aware of the stories he had heard about Anne Frank from many, many years ago. And the quote said this: "Look at how a single candle can both defy and define the darkness." Oh my goodness. This little boy had to sit and think about that for a minute. A single candle can mean so much at a dark time. And he felt that his community had stepped into a dark time. So now he had a couple of tools. He had the Christ consciousness, he had the principle of unity, and now he knew that he could bring light into the darkness. He was getting more and more excited. And as it got closer to the holiday season, he began to formulate a plan. His next stop was the library, because if you couldn't find it at the library, it probably didn't exist. At least that's what he was told by his teachers. He found information about many cultures, many traditions, and many celebrations. He discovered information about Yule, the holiday of Yule, and solstice, and how this became a name for Christmas time in the 9th century. And the Norse believed that the sun was a great wheel of fire that rolled towards and then away from the earth. He found this fascinating. Yule is a winter festival, and it was historically observed by the Germanic peoples. But again, Claude didn't think he had to be German to embrace some of these ideas. He really thought that maybe he could bring some of these ideas of Yule to his community. He started talking to everyone about the things he was learning. And as he shared, many people patted him on the shoulder, gave him a hug, gave him a smile, and thanked him. And he realized something was happening in the community, and he was a big part of it. He realized that we have many, many, many beliefs, and yet so many of them are quite similar. So many of them are built on love and light and consciousness. And they all bring us closer together. You see, his plan was to make a bigger statement in his community. Before school let out for Christmas holiday, Claude was asked to speak at the school assembly. He stood up and he shared all of the different philosophies and faiths that he had learned about. He shared up the ideas. He talked to the kids from his school about how we are all so much alike. We're not so different. And we each have this power within us, this awareness within us, this Christ consciousness, that we can make the world better, not only for ourselves, but for each other. Then he took it one step further. He had a buddy named Mr. Martinez, who used to own a print shop. He went to see Mr. Martinez and he said, I want to make a newsletter. I want to make a newsletter about all of these things I've learned, and I want to get this out to everyone before Christmas so that everyone can see that there's so many different philosophies, but they're so similar in how they connect to all of us and they bring us all together in unity. And Mr. Martinez took his old print shop equipment out and he helped him create these beautiful newsletters and flyers. And before long, every single person in the community had one of these flyers, had one of these pieces of paper with all this wonderful information. Something magical began to happen in Claude's community. People began to look for him on the street. People began to greet him, shouting at him if he was across the street or down the block. People started laughing. He would hear people laughing out on the corner. He would notice people connecting at the grocery store, and he started seeing people helping each other. It just felt amazing to see the differences that were happening. He continued to share his stories and all of the philosophies he could find. He even looked into religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, and he found this beautiful quote from Rajneesh of the Buddhist belief, and he shared this with people. There is something within you, there is something in you which always remains in its intrinsic nature, never changing. It remains in its self-same essence, eternally so. That which does not change in you is the Buddha mind, the Satori, the Christ consciousness. Now he had it. He realized that he had gone full circle. He'd gone out and found out about this philosophy, and then he found out that information, the Christ consciousness, was kind of carried through with all of them. The light, the love, the things that we can share, all of the powerful things that we are on planet Earth. Oh my gosh, this kid was amazing, and he was having the time of his life. This brings us to today. We have a multitude of celebrations and faiths. They're all connected and they are all surrounding us this time of year. Many countries have their own traditions. St. Stephen's Day, Boxing Day. We are at liberty to choose one, or we can choose them all. You see, it is the season of celebration. And as we celebrate, wouldn't we want to celebrate all life? Wouldn't we want to celebrate all expressions of life? Wouldn't that make us more unified and bring us closer together? It is time for each of us to embrace our belief and acknowledge others free from prejudice and criticism. In this beautiful season of love and light, may we strive to make the lives of others lighter and blessed. I have this quote from Claude and Anita Damont. This is the season when people of all faiths and cultures are pushing back against the planetary darkness. We string bulbs, we ignite bonfires and light candles, and we sing. So as we step into this time ourselves, each one of us is at choice for what we choose to embrace, accept, and have be a part of our lives. You're probably wondering what happened to that village, that community where Claude lives. They all started sharing their stories. They started getting together in community gatherings and talking about their childhoods, many traditions that they had been taught about. They began to connect in ways they'd never done in the past. And they were incredibly grateful for this amazing, beautiful, loving-hearted 10-year-old boy, because he had opened their eyes when they were starting to look away from the truth of who they were. We each have the same ability today, every single one of us. As we leave this space today, we take with us that Christ consciousness. Maybe we didn't know we came in with it as well. And we can choose whatever we want. Claude set up a room in his house where he celebrates all of the different faiths, all of the different philosophies. and has symbols from all of them. What happened on Christmas Eve that year was dozens of people gathered outside Claude's family home and were out there singing all kinds of songs, Christmas carols that were familiar and songs from different traditions he'd never heard before. It was beautiful and it was incredible. And I don't know, you may have thought of this, you may have realized this at some level, but Claude kind of picked up a nickname in that community. They called him Santa Claude. Please join me in prayer. As we allow this to just percolate in our hearts and we allow this beautiful message to touch us and lift us, we realize that God is in all of it. A power, a spirit so amazing, so incredible that it doesn't choose just one way. It offers us many, many ways for us to come together, for us to be united and love and live in the light of who we are and how we are. And what we know right here and right now is that each one of us is that choice. And as we leave this space and this time today, we get to decide what we want, what traditions we choose to create and how we choose to create them. And we get to realize and remember that we do not need to turn away or shut down or shun from any of the others, because it's all beautiful, it's all good, and it's all God. And so this holiday season, I know our hearts are filled with love and light. I know that we embrace the entire idea of all that we can be, and we embrace that beautiful Christ consciousness within, and we share it with everyone we come in contact with, because we know that in doing this, just as Claude did in his community, we can make this world a better place. So right here and right now, I know that all people are blessed, and there are many, many tender-hearted people right now who have lost loved ones or who are separated from others, and we send them our love. We send them our love and allow them to be surrounded and filled by that loving comfort, that they are part of something more. And may we honor the ideas and the traditions that we choose, and may we share them freely with loving voices and cheerful messages and beautiful opportunities for song. I know this time is blessed. I know it's perfect, and I know each and every one of us is filled with the light of God today and every day. We are so blessed. We are so thankful. And we simply release this, letting it go, letting God, as we affirm together, and so it is.
Christmas past is far away. Christmas future's not yet. Christmas present is here today, bringing joy that will last. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. Next year, all our problems will be miles away. Here we are as in golden days, happy golden days. gather near to us once more. Through years, we all gonna get together. If the fates allow, hang a shining star upon the highest bough. Have yourself a merry little Christmas now. Here we are as in olden days, happy golden days of yore. Faithful friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more. Through the years, we're all gonna get together. If the fates allow, hang a shining star upon the highest bough, and have yourself a merry little Christmas now. Give it up for Ken Jansen, would you?
Hello, I'm Reverend Jenn Wilde, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.